Hello everyone, I'm Joseph once again. Welcome to our second lesson in Python. Now, I think you have a good rest already, and I think actually the general office gave me more space. So now the class size I think is 44 instead of 40. So more people are, so you have more classmates and we have more students, and that's good for online teaching, but I think they are having some changes as well. I think the university announcement is we are going to have face-to-face hybrid mode starting from the end of this month, the end of September. So I think we will make a further announcement afterwards, but no worries. We will move on to talk about something related to Python. Now, before I start, so as I know some of you may not be here in the previous week, or maybe you newly added this course. So I think let me change to my cell phone here. Now again, this is my timetable, and I teach two courses. One is Python and another one is e-business. So for those who are not here in the previous week, I will recommend you to scan this QR code. This is the easiest way to reach me. So most of the students now, they like to communicate with each other using WhatsApp, and I think this is a convenient method to reach me as well. So my office phone number is 34427537, and this office phone number is also registered on WhatsApp, so you could also reach me using this phone number. Now, in case you are in campus and you would like to visit me and ask for anything related to this course, you are more than welcome to do so. So my office is in AC3 sixth floor in the Department of Information System, room 233. Okay, now again, this is my schedule. Okay, again, this is my schedule. So I have two courses in this semester and another course in another university as a part-time job. So without further talking about these, let us move on to our second week of Python teaching. Now, this is your canvas. So for all the related materials for this week, I have already uploaded to week 2 here. So what we are going to talk about is this file. So it's lab2.docx, and also please download this sudo lab2 circle.py, this file. We will use these material for teaching in this week. Now let me show you the Word document we have. Okay, it's here. And this week we will talk about something related to the conversion between different data types. Let's say, for example, sometimes you would like to convert a user input into some kind of numbers so that you can have some kind of calculation being done in Python. We will also show you some different types of calculations that you can do in Python, and also something that what we call exception handling. Let's say, for example, you require the user to enter a number, but you have no control when you have a program given to a user. This particular person may enter something else. Maybe they type in some, well, instead of numbers, they just type in some English alphabets. Then what to do in this situation? So these are the three things that we are going to talk about in this particular lab. Now, I would like to recap what we have mentioned in the previous tutorial. So I think most of you already know that I am Joseph, and also your lecturer is TJ. And also, given that you already set up Python and know how to operate IDLE, the development interface, on Windows or Mac, depends on the machine that you would like to use. Okay, so in case you have missed out these information, don't worry. We already have the recordings available on Canvas. Now here in Canvas, if you go to week number 1, I have already uploaded the video for lab 1 to YouTube. So if you click on this link here and then you can click one more here. Students nowadays, they like to use WhatsApp. Okay, so this is me. Okay, hello. Talking about our lab 1 introduction to Python on YouTube. So in case you have missed out the first lesson, in case you newly add to this course, please revisit lab 1 by yourself, and in case you have any difficulty, always welcome to contact me or TJ and ask about something related to this course as well. Okay, so please download this file and then we will proceed ahead to talk about what we need to talk about in this particular lab 2. Now we have in the previous week also talked about some simple output using the print method. In case you have forgot, we try to start our first program by some kind of output called hello world, and we also ask the user to type in their name so that our program will reply accordingly. So when I type Joseph, and then it will say hello Joseph, something like that. Now once again, in case you have missed out our previous first tutorial on Python, you could go and visit Canvas, and there is a link to a YouTube video related to the first lab that we have mentioned in the previous week. Okay, now this week we start to do something very interesting. Now I'd like to start with some kind of example. So I will temporarily put these aside, and I will show you this one. Now this week we try to do something like this. Okay, this week we try to do something like this. Now this is a very simple program that will ask for an integer input and then calculate the area of a circle. Let's say, for example, the radius, maybe it is 3 inch or 3 cm, so it depends on the unit. So unit doesn't matter. So so maybe I can input 5 here. So maybe it is 5 inches or maybe it is 5 cm. So it will tell me that circle area is 8.5 something. So you don't need to worry about these decimal places. Now this is a very simple program that will calculate the area of the circle based on an integer input by you. Now again, in the previous week, we have mentioned some different data types, so I think you can still remember what is integer, what is float, what is string, what is boolean. So these are the 4 data types that we have mentioned in the previous tutorial. Now, this week, we start to have some kind of class exercise, and we will try to complete this program together. So this is a way to facilitate your learning. Now, in order to help you to learn it in a faster pace, so let me end this program first. Now I have already provided on Canvas this file, so sudo lab2 circle. Now I think if you have attended the lecture, you already know that what is pseudocode. Okay, what is meant by pseudocode. So this is the pseudocode that I have provided for you for this week of class exercise. Now once again, I think after week 1 you should know how to open this Python shell and also open this file. So this is the sudo lab2circle.py. So this is the pseudocode that I have provided for you for this particular week, and we are going to complete this exercise together. Now, these are the comments that we have mentioned in the previous week, and I will strongly recommend you that because starting from this week, I'll ask you to submit some kind of classwork. What you have completed in this class exercise, I will ask you to submit it to Canvas. So here, I will recommend you to start with some kind of personal identity. So maybe I'm Joseph Kong, so type in your name here, and also please, I would like to have some kind of student ID here for submission of your work. Okay. Now let me introduce this very interesting class exercise. Now, again, so I think most university students already forgot how to calculate the area of the circle. That's why I have provided the formula to you, and I think TJ is not very happy about it, provided his mathematical background. And but we are in a business school, so I think most of the university students already forgot their secondary or primary school mathematics. This is the way you calculate the area of a circle. And we are going to cover these arithmetic operators today. Now, first of all, go to this pseudocode. There are something that do not require you to have this type of mathematical knowledge. Is that this one? Now, I think in the previous week you can still remember some programmer, they would like to declare or define a variable with a certain value at the beginning of the program. Now, this is some kind of programming habit, and in case you don't define it, let's say for example, I have no idea. Now, the program has no idea about this pi value, then it cannot perform any calculation. So, anyone here can help me to complete this sentence? Okay, define a float variable. So this is a float pi as 3.1416. How to write this? How to write this statement? How to write this statement? Do you still remember? Okay, this is something that we have covered in the previous week. It is called the assignment statement. You have some kind of value assigning to a variable. You have something really. You have a value assigned to a variable, and a variable do require a name. Now the name already provided to you. This is flow.py. So I will begin with flow.py, and in order to assign a value to this type of a container, a cup for some kind of wine, you can imagine it like that. I want to put in value 3.1416. Okay. Oh yes. Thank you very much for your answer. Very good. Now this is a float pi. This is assignment. Assignment is equal. Remember, assignment statement is also from the right side assigning to the left side. From the right side assigning to the left side. Now I have two answers here. Very good. Now actually there are two answers. Now Python do not require you to specify a data type when you first define a variable or assign a value to a variable. It could actually recognize the data type by itself, but some programmer they like to further specify what type of data I would like to define. So this is okay. And other statement is okay. So this is further specified what kind of data is here. Now, in case at this moment you have no idea about this method, you don't need to worry about it. This is some kind of conversion function that we will talk about at the second part of this exercise. So you don't need to worry about this method at this moment. You just need to worry about, well, maybe you can first by begin typing it like this. So you assign 3.141x6 to the float variable float pi here. Okay, so this is the first statement that we need to complete. Oh, you cannot see. So what about other classmates? Can you see my screen clearly? Okay, so I think it is your. Is it? Is it a little bit blur, or is it not very clear? Okay. So I will try to make some changes. Okay, will it be more clear now? Okay, so I think so. Thank you very much for your feedback. Now, this is what we call an assignment statement. So that 3.1416 is assigned to this variable called float pi. Okay, remember, assignment statement is always the right hand side assigned to the left hand side. Okay, remember, this is something definitely wrong. So if you type something like this is totally wrong, and there will be some kind of problem if you like to do that. Now let me give you an example here. Now this is correct. Now this is totally correct. You can definitely run this program. Okay, you can definitely run this program without an issue. But what about you try to reverse it? Okay, what will happen? Okay, there will be some kind of error message, I think. Set yes, cannot assign to literal. So always right hand side assigned to left hand side. So because this is a fixed variable, this is not a variable, Python will tell you that you cannot do it this way. Okay, so let me put this aside. So our first statement is complete. Now the next thing that you need to do here is I would like to ask for a user's input. Now, in the previous tutorial, I have already introduced to you. In order to read a user input, you are going to use a function called input. Now, here, say for example, now what is mentioned here. So, after defining what is pi, I will ask user to input something and assign it to a string variable called string user input. So when you try to capture a user input, first of all I will treat it as a string. So no matter what kind of things being typed by this particular person, I just treat it as a string. I just type it as some kind of English word, and I hope that I can convert this type of string variable into something else. So here now I know that the value from a user input will be contained by this string user input. But what about the next part? Okay, how to ask for a user input? Okay, what is the statement we have mentioned in the previous week? So I think it's input. Now, once again, I don't need to remind you, is that you know that I have a programmer habit. So whenever you open a bracket, you close it immediately. This is for a very good reason. When I talk about calculation here, I will show you why. Okay, input. So what do you like to ask? So maybe the simplest way is ask for the radius. Yes, you are right. So string user input equals to input radius. Okay, so remember, when you have when programmer type a double quote like this, they usually will type another double quote immediately and then fill in the content afterwards. So radius. Okay, so this is correct. Now, in the previous tutorial, we have a string combined with another string, so you don't need to worry about conversion, because I will treat the input by this particular user as a string. But here, I would like to do some calculations. But if it is some kind of English word, I cannot do calculation. So here I will introduce a function to you. It is what we call some kind of conversion functions or conversion methods. It is like when you ask for a user input. Let's say, for example, if I want to ask for some kind of integer, okay, the Python will try to convert it into a number. Let's say if the user input is this one, then obviously if the user input is free, then it is very good. I don't need any conversion. I just know that this is free. But these are some extra characteristics of this integer function. Is that, let's say, for example, what about it is a float value? It will actually do a truncate. It will immediately omit something that after the dot. So if you have 2.7 convert to an integer, it will become 2. If you have negative 2.7, it will become negative 2. So 3, of course, it will become 3. But sometimes you will find that if you ask for a user to input some kind of integer, he or she may not be following your instruction and type something wrong. Now, this I will cover in later part of this tutorial, where what we need to do is something called exception handling, which I will soon mention about it. Now here at this moment here, I will need a conversion. Well, after reading the user input here, I would like to convert this input into an integer variable, or change it into some kind of integer value, and then put it into a variable called integer radius. So here, what is this statement? So integers, so this one, okay, integer radius equals to what? Okay, thank you very much. So I would just now, maybe I can simply copy and paste what you have typed for me. So thank you very much for your answer. Oh, okay, anyway, so I think it doesn't work. So I would like to convert the user input into an integer and then assign this value into integer radius. So far we have completed these. Okay, so this is the very simple introduction of what we call a conversion function. Now sometimes for programming, it usually happens is that you need some kind of data type conversion. That's why at the beginning of this particular semester, so in the last semester when I talk about Python, Python is a very simple programming language. It allows you to write codes that are very short, because a lot of data types or definitions, these are being done automatically. You don't need to worry about it. But in the previous tutorial, I have spent some time to talk about the data type. Now you will see, although you don't need to specifically define what kind of data type it is, you need to think about the data type when you do some kind of processing. You need to do, or when you need some kind of statement that require you to do, let's say, calculation, convert a user input into some kind of data that require that could be used for calculation, these sort of things. So these type of things, you need some kind of conversion, and conversion is about converting into different data types. Okay, so this is one of the very important concept in programming, is you need to convert different data type. Okay, you need to convert text into number, and for a number you can perform calculations. So these are some kind of things that I would like to specifically mention it to you. Now I think I will run this example once again. So I have, of course, some tricks performed here. Now of course, if you type 3, it will perform a calculation of the circle area here. But what about I type something else? Let's say if I type ABC here, what will happen? Okay, so my program is very smart, telling me that this is not valid integer. But what about the program that you are writing here? Okay, so it will ask you for radius. If I type in 3, okay, it is totally fine. I try to run it once again. But what about I type in some English number? Now, something will happen. Something will tell me that, okay, in line 10, this statement invalid literal for integer function with base 10 ABC. So ABC can, so it actually means that this input ABC cannot be converted into a number, or it cannot be converted into an integer. Now for programmer, I think something that we have where I have missed out in the previous tutorial is about the line number. Now when you open Python, this interface should look like this, and programmers, they communicate with each other using the name of this variable, some kind of comments, and also they communicate with each other using the line number here. So even this so in your Python, you can go to options and then you can select this one, show line numbers here, and then on the left hand side will show you the line numbers. Now when Python runs, when there is some kind of problems, it will tell you which line and which line of code, something like this. So as a programmer, you will trace, let's say, what is happening in line 10. It is actually this line. So some problem occurred here. Is that after reading the input from the user, it put into this variable called the string user input, and this string user input cannot be converted into an integer variable. So this is this error about. Now temporarily, where I will talk about how to handle this case in the maybe second half of this tutorial. I will simply move on to talk about some calculation first, and I will talk about this exception handling at second half of this tutorial. Okay, so something you need to worry about is that in the future, when I ask you to complete some kind of individual assignment of group project, when there is a requirement of user input, you ask the user to type in something. Not necessarily the user is typing it is typing in the correct data type for you or the correct input for you. You need to handle this issue. Okay. So let me move on. So let me move on now here. Now most of the university students already forgot how to do calculation. I don't know why. Now let me tell you a secret. So my mathematical skill is in fact very very poor. I failed most of my secondary school mathematics, and I think TJ is not happy to hear that. And my mathematical skill is well, I will only say that it is only good enough for my daily living. So I think most of the calculations that I need to do nowadays is calculate the average cost of share price when I buy some kind of shares. So so in case you are interested to know how to buy shares, especially IT firms in the US, you are more than welcome to ask me. So I have so I'm not sure if you know that last Thursday and Friday there is a price drop in IT firms in the US, and I've brought some Apple shares, and my mathematical skill is only good enough for me to calculate the average cost that I have paid for share, so per share. So this is me. So don't think that I'm a brilliant guy. My secondary school result is very poor, but I can still finish my PhD. So it's very lucky. Okay, now talking about calculation here. Now, I once again remind you that the way to calculate the area of a circle is like that, in case you already forgot, just like me. Okay, so most university students, especially students from the business school, already forgot how to perform mathematics. Okay, now, here, area is equals to pi r square. Okay, pi r square. Now, I think here, we already have something that we need. So, we already have pi here. We already have radius if the user is giving me the correct input. Then I think we have enough information to perform this operation. Now in Python there are a number of these arithmetic operators. So you have addition, you have subtraction, you have multiplication, you have division, and you have some kind of power. Okay, so to the power what, something like that. And something that I would like to tell you is the resulting data type. Now, here, let me give you some kind of example. Let's say, for example, if I have two variables acting together, the result may be an integer variable or a float variable. Depends on the variable involved in this calculation. Let's say, for example, here if I give you an example, something like this, I have an integer variable here. I have a float variable here. Well, let me ask you something. Okay, let me ask you something. So maybe result, okay, is equals to an integer plus an integer. So if it's the case for Python, when the involving parties here, the involving variables here, if this is integer, and there's nothing else, here the result will be an integer. Okay, here the result will be an integer. But if there is one variable here is float, there's one variable here is integer, here this result will be a float variable. Okay, so here the result data type is actually depends on, so the result data type is actually depends on whether the involved variable is integer or a float value. So when there is a float, then this result will be a float variable. If all these are integer, this will be an integer. That's why in the previous lab, I spent some time to tell you what is data type, because when it comes to calculation, it will give you something very strange. So you need to know that if it is integer, this result will be integer. It also tells you why some programmer, as I have mentioned in the previous lab, some programmer, they like to specify the data type of this variable as a prefix of the name of this variable, so that they could easily identify what is happening. So I know that this is integer, then this must be an integer. Now the same for minus, the same for multiplication. Okay, but you need to pay special attention to the division operator. Okay, you need to pay special attention to the division operator. Is that even if you have an integer divided by an integer, the result for Python is always float. Okay, the result for Python is always float. Now, this is a little bit different from other programming languages. Some programming languages, they have two different symbols to perform this thing. They have what they call an integer division, and they have what they call a real division. So integer division, the result will be an integer. Okay, the real division, even if you have two integer dividing with each other, it will become a float value. So Python does not have that. I would like to tell you that in case you are using the programming knowledge from this course, or specifically programming knowledge from Python, sometimes you need to adapt to another programming languages, because other programming language, they may have different implementation for this type of operation. So especially for those from the C family, they have what they call an integer division, and also what they call the real division. Okay, Python does not have that. Python is very simple. One symbol means division, but pay special attention to this result data type. Okay, this result data type. Integer divided by another integer. This one is always a float variable. This one is always a float variable. And finally, you have power. So in case you have something to the power what, remember, is 2 asterisk sign. 2 asterisk means an exponential. Okay, the power to what? Okay, power to what? Now here, I think you already have some idea about these operations. Okay, these operations. Now I would like to calculate. I would like to implement this formula. So I have float, I have pi here, I have radius here, I have pi here, I have radius here. And I think in the tutorial notes, I have already give you this statement here. I have already provided you the answer. Now, I will first copy this one, and I will do some explanation. Now, this is something in programming that always confuses me, is that the priority of this operator. Now, different programming language will do this differently. That's why I only remember one rule. Now, let me show you something. What is the difference between these two lines? What is the difference between these two lines? Now, the difference between these two lines is this bracket. Okay. Now, for this type of arithmetic operations, things just like mathematics, things in the bracket will always do first. Okay, things in the bracket will always do first. Now, this is the rule that I'm a person with very poor memory. I'm a very creative person, but I have very poor memory. So the issue here is, in order to address this problem, I only remember one rule, is that things in bracket always do first. Things in brackets always do first, just like your primary and secondary school mathematics. Okay, so here, this one radius square will perform first, and then it will multiply by this float pi. Okay, this float pi. Now here, different programming language will do it differently. So I cannot remember that. I'm a person with very poor memory. Some programming language, they have different priorities. I don't know about Python. Okay, I don't know about Python. So some programming language, this symbol will have a higher priority than this symbol, so that this part of the formula will perform first, and then next will perform this part. Now then you have a correct calculation, because for mathematics, I think the power is supposed to do first and then multiply by other value. Now, some programming language, it is a little bit different. Some programming language, they do it from left to right. So if it is performed left to right, what will happen? It will first perform pi times radius first, and then the result of this will be to the power 2. Then you will have a wrong answer. That's why for this type of calculations, I only remember one rule, is that things in the bracket will carry out first, and as long as you type it this way, you always has the correct answer. You always has the correct answer. Okay. Now, I would like to show you once again. Some programmer, they will disable, temporarily disable some sentence using the comment. So I will use the same technique here to show you that this is wrong. Okay. Or I'm just confused whether this one will perform first or this one part will perform first. So I will never recommend you to write it like this, because different programming language will have different priorities of this operation. I will always do it like this. Now finally, I think this one is very simple. This one, there is a line here which I think I have provided here. Okay, similar to this one. Now, I will ask you to try this line first. I will, so after this calculation, I will display the circle area. So, print what? Okay, so print what kind of things? I think in the previous lab, I've already shown you hello plus a variable name. Hello plus and a variable name. The same here. Okay, so area is plus this one. Okay, now I will first ask you to try this, and Python will tell you that something is wrong. Python will tell you something is wrong. Okay, why is it the case? Now I will show you why. Now first of all, I try to run this one, save it. Now it will tell me that this statement is wrong. So, what is the error statement? So the error message that I have is line 16. So for convenience, you can try to activate the line number in your interface. So it tells me that this line is wrong. This line is wrong. Oh, I've typed it wrong as well. Okay, area is something. Okay, now print this one. This statement is wrong, so it will tell me that it is some kind of type error. Can only, I don't know how to pronounce this word, string not flow to string. Okay, now this word, you could search it here. It actually means joining two things together. Joining two things together. Okay, yes, you are right, but I will do some explanation here. Okay, so joining two things together. So Excel, in case you are using Microsoft Excel, this program, it will has this kind of function as well. It's joining two string. Now here, what we have here is Python actually tells me you cannot do it this way. Now, try to recognize this symbol. Try to recognize this symbol. And here, this symbol. Now, some programming languages like that, they have the same symbol, but when the same symbol is placed in different places, it means different things. So when you have different symbol when you have the same symbol placed in different places, it means different things. Here, this symbol, when you put in calculations, it means addition. But when this symbol is placed between string variable, it means that two strings are joining together. Two strings are joining together. Now the same logic just like this one. When you have an integer adding to an integer, the result is an integer. Now the problem with this statement is that this is string. This is number. So Python is confused. what do you mean by an English word plus or addition with a number? Do you want to print out this number, or do you want to convert this thing to a number and perform a calculation? Now, this is what this error message means. It means that Python is confused. What is happening here? Now, there are two ways to solve the problem. You could do a conversion. You can do a conversion just like this one. When you have a string joining to another thing, this thing needs to be a string as well. So you can perform a conversion at this location. So it could be using the string method to convert this into a string. Or you can simply ignore this part. So some student will do it this way. This is also acceptable, but it is a little bit confusing, because if you only print out this thing, I have no idea about what is this number about. So I will recommend this one. So now this float value will be converted to a string. So this is string, and then Python will know that you mean that this string joining with another string. Now, your semi-finished classwork is like this. So you could try to run it. And this is your third program, if I calculate it correctly. If you type 3 here, it will tell you the area is something like this. Okay. And let's run once again. Okay, so 5, it will become something like this. Okay, so this is your semi-completed program. Now I would like to mention something extra. Okay, I would like to mention something extra here. So I will delete this one. Now, some expert programmer. So how many variables do we have in this program? So you have float pi, you have string user input, you have integer radius, you have float area. So here you already have 4 variables. So you already have 4 variables. Now, then you will ask me, okay, now Joseph, if everyone is submitting a classwork or an assignment to you, how can you make sure that this is his or her original work? Now, I will tell you that when you, after mastering this programming language, now different programmer, they will have different writing style. Different programmer, they will have different writing style. What does it mean? In addition to some kind of let's say personal information here. Okay, maybe what is this lab? Okay, L02, something like that. Or maybe you are from other laboratory, I don't know. Okay, so something like that in addition to this type of personal information. Now, this is related to the use of variable. Some programmer, they think that, okay, this pi is always fixed. This pi is always fixed. Why do I need to spend extra memory to store this pi? So some programmer will simply ignore using this variable and just put it here. So forget about this line. So you can do it like that. Some programmer will think that, okay, I will temporarily store user input and then I will convert into radius. Then why don't I ask for a user input at this location? So you have one less variable here. And once again, when you have integer radius here, why not this one put it here? and then you can ignore one more variable. And of course, finally, you could always have this calculation put in this area, and then this line can forget it. So for expert programmers, you will find that the way so my circle expert here, you will find that their lines could be very short, and it actually depends. Now, there is no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong answer. And it actually depends on your habit and your choice and the skill that you master a programming language. Now, the original, so sometimes you will find that some programmer, they can do it with very short codes. Just like this one line, and then they can do things that I like. So I will try to undo my changes. Okay, so I will try to undo my changes. I will say this one, and I will try to run this one as well. So as for radius 3, it will give me the same answer. So you can see that if you already have some kind of programming experience, some programmer, they can do it like this with only one line of statement. Some programmers, like you do, you are a beginner to programming, then you will have a number of lines here. So after this tutorial, on Canvas, of course, after your submission, I have one sample which is something similar to this, very long version, a beginner version. Think about a program step by step, a very structured way. I also have an advanced version here. Now again, this one is not wrong. Okay, this one is not wrong. This one is for you to experience when you compare yourself with experienced programmer. Their codes could be very short. Like this, which in fact perform the same function. And for example here, if I want something like press enter to end program, they will simply type a line something like this. Okay, so 2 lines of codes performing exactly the same result. Okay, so this is for your reference, that you can do it like this, and you can also do it like this. So you can compare. Now, you don't need to worry about these type of special symbols here. We will talk about these when we talk about string in lab 3. Okay, we will talk about string in lab 3. So 2 lines, around 10 lines. So this is for you to experience different writing style achieving the same result. Okay, so this is a 2-hour laboratory, and I think it is the right time for me to give you a break of 10 minutes. So I will leave it here, and I will pause this tutorial. So please come back at 105. Okay, 105. Okay, so we come back to this screen, and before the break, we have completed talking about some kind of conversion methods and also some kind of arithmetic operators. So you know that you are assigning some variable to assigning some value to a variable, reading user input, and then converting a user input into integer, and then do some kind of calculation and then print out this one. So the special trick here so far is this part, because a string cannot perform addition to a value, a numerical value. That's why in order to display this numerical value should be converted to string, and then Python will know that this is joining these two together. Now, before the break, I have also showed you there are different methods to write the same program. There are different methods to achieve the same result. So just like here. Okay, so some programmer can do the same program with only 2 lines. Some beginners, they require around 10 lines in order to complete the same program. So this is just for you to know that there are different there are different methods to achieve the same result. There are different methods to the same result, including your writing style, including the choice of variables, including whether you need a variable or not, and including some type of shorthands. Just like here, I have print an extra line and then I ask for input this one. In fact, you can do it with only 1 line. So input and then an escape character here. Now, you don't need to worry about this thing. This thing we'll talk about, well, when we talk about string in the coming week, we will cover this one. Okay, so you don't need to worry about it so far. Now, here comes the problem that I've mentioned earlier in this tutorial. How to do something like this. Now, I think I have a sample here. Okay. When I type ABC here, there's obviously a string. And here you have a string try to convert into integer, and there will be some kind of error. But my example here does not have an error. It tells me not a valid integer. Now I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay, I'm going to tell you how to do this. Now, for the same code here, if I try to run this module, if I type ABC, here there will be some kind of error. Here there will be some kind of error. Okay, so it will tell me that line 11. It will tell me line 11. This line has an error. So where's line 11? This line has an error. So string cannot be converted into integer. If you are typing in number, very good, it could be converted into integer. Even if you type in a flow, it could be converted into integer. But you are typing ABC, or you are typing Joseph, you are typing your name here, it cannot be converted into integer, and this error will appear. It tells you that ABC cannot be converted into integer, and this error is called a value error. This value is called a value error. Just like the notes that I have given you here. Now, there are conversion methods for you to convert a value into different types. But what if you are typing some English word and then try to convert into integer? Now, the return value will be something called the value error, and this is what we call an exception. Now, this exception will appear when there is something wrong related to your program, and there are a lot of different types of exception. Now, this tutorial, I will show you a very simple one, is how to handle this value error. This is how to handle this value error. Now, there is a technique in programming. There is a technique called programming, called a catch. There's a technique called catch. We call it catch an exception, or catching the exception. So, what does it mean? It means that you will try some kind of code, and if there is some kind of error exists, another portion of code will run. Now, this is a little bit complicated to understand, so I will directly show you the example. Now, we have so many comments here, so I will simply put these comments aside for easy reading. I think you don't need the pseudocode. I think you are smart enough to understand what does this mean. So I will delete the pseudocodes that I have provided at the beginning of this lesson, and we look at only these 5 lines of codes here. Now, there are some issues related to this program. It's like this part will likely to cause a problem, because when you have a program displayed to a user, it is very likely that this person is entering something wrong. Let's say typing some English word and you try to convert it into an integer. Okay, and this part will also affect the calculation of this part and displaying in this part. When this line of code cannot run, you cannot perform calculation, and also you cannot display the result of the calculation. So what to do here? Now what we are going to use is a syntax called try except. Now how to type it? Now here at line 7 you can type try. If you have typed it correctly, it will turn into orange, and then you have a colon here. Okay, you have a colon here. Now Python is like that. Python use indentation to show which portion is included in this particular big bracket or a category of codes or basket of codes. So here you add some other things except value error colon here. So except value error colon. Now if you type it correctly, this one will change to orange, this one will change to purple. Now the next thing that you need to do is to highlight this section of code, because, well, this part will affect this part, will affect this part. This part will affect this part, and then will affect this part. Now this part will not be affected, so you don't need to worry about it. You use this try to to isolate this part of code. What you need to do next is to highlight this part, and then you press the tab on your keyboard. All these will be indented by a tab or a block. Okay, so it means that this try is trying these 4 lines of codes. If it is okay, the user is entering something correctly, it will perform this part, and then it will continue to end this program. But what if the user is typing something wrong? Now you will ask Python to do something else as long as there is some kind of error exists. Here, say for example, I can display a warning message to the user, not a valid integer, okay, or not valid numeric value, something like that. I'm not sure if I type it correctly. You know that my English skill is very poor, my mathematics skill is equally poor, so I don't know why I can complete my PhD. So don't ask me, don't ask me to study PhD again, so I will never do it again. Okay, so numeric value. Okay, so never ask me to complete PhD once again. It is a very painful process for me. So for somebody who have poor language skill and mathematical skill. Okay, now, so what is happening here? Now here, if the user is typing something meaningless and try to convert into integer, the value error will this will trigger what we call the value error. Here, this line of code is asked Python. Now, there is some kind of potential problem which will occur in this section of code. Now, if this section of code you encountered the value error, you can stop this section immediately and then jump to perform this part. Okay, stop this section immediately when there's a value error, and then proceed forward to execute this part. So what will happen here? Now if you save this part and then you run it, now if you type in 3, okay, it perform equally well. If what we put in a float value, okay, it's also not numeric, so it means that it cannot do it like this, so no worries. So I am so I think I will give you a wrong answer, but that's okay. And so for demonstration purpose, not valid integer. Okay, I try to run it once again. So 3.2 not valid integer. Press enter to end program. Here press 3. Okay, result is being performed. What if ABC? Okay, not a valid integer. Okay, so this is the technique. So later when I ask you to do some kind of classwork, assignment, or your project, sometimes you will give a list of choice to the to the user. Maybe you type A means something, you type B means something, or maybe you type 1 means something, 2 means something. Just like those type of telephone hotline from those banks. So they can ask you to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 means different things. But what if you type A, what if you type B, or what if you enter some kind of sound that the system cannot recognize? Now, this is the way to handle this problem. Because this part, maybe the user will type in a float, maybe the user will type in a string, which this one will cause a value error. And as long as this section of code trigger a value error, the program, this part will stop immediately, and and instead it will run this part of code. So it will tell you that not valid integer. Okay, so these are the things, these are the 3 basic programming concepts that I would like to cover in this tutorial. So what have we covered? We covered some kind of arithmetic operators. You know that you can do plus, minus, multiplication, division, and power to something. Now pay special attention to the result data type. When you have integer adding an integer, the result is integer. When you have an integer adding to a float, it becomes a float. When you have float plus float, of course it is a float. Okay, the same for these 3 and this one. Now the only issue is the division. So even if you have an integer divided by an integer, the result is always a float. Okay, the result is always a float. Integer divided by integer is always a float. Okay, this is the characteristic, or this is something special for Python, specifically for Python. Some other programming language, they may handle it differently. Okay, now, and also remember, things in the bracket go first. This one is different from this one for some programming language. Okay, so make sure that. Now I am a person with very poor memory, that's why I always put bracket for parts that I would like to perform earlier. Okay, I always put bracket for parts that I would like to have a priority to handle. So if I type in this part, I am quite sure that this part will perform first, and then this part will perform next. If I type in this thing, I'm not sure about the priority. Some language, they do this part first and then this part later. Some programming language, they do this part first and then this part later. So I'm not sure about Python. I only remember parts with bracket will handle first. Okay, and also we have mentioned some kind of conversion. So this is conversion, this is conversion. Remember, this is a string, this is a number, so string cannot plus a number. So for a number to display correctly, remember to convert to a string first. String, string together, this symbol means joining 2 strings together. But if you have calculation, this one plus this one, it becomes a calculation. This is something that you need to pay special attention. Okay, on the data type, pay special attention to the data type. And finally, we talk about this try and accept. We talk about this try and accept. You have no control of what kind of things the user will give you. Okay, you have no control in what kind of things the user will input to you. It could be an integer, it could be a float, it could be some other things. Okay, so these are the 3 things that I would like to mention in this particular tutorial, and this is your class exercise. So starting from this week, I will ask you to submit your class exercise so that you can prove you have done something. You could follow what we have covered in the lab correctly. So remember to save this file and remember to submit to your work here. So on Canvas, under week 2, this lab 2 class exercise here, click on here. And I think it is already published, so remember to submit it here as a proof of you have already completed your classwork. Okay, and we will check to see if you have done it correctly. And in case you have any questions, you can always feel free to ask me. Now, the deadline for submission of your classwork is always 1 hour. So it is before your 1 hour before your lecture. So it is always 1 hour before your lecture. Submit your classwork. Okay. Now I have a weekly assignment for you, as we have mentioned in the screen of the Python. You want this one. Okay. In line 18, this one. Okay, I want to ask in line 18 why the code is input instead of print. Now, I put input here because I want to ask the user to press enter to end the program. Okay, I want the user to press enter to end the program. In fact, you can ignore this part, no worries. But if you ignore this part, there is something very strange. Now, because running a program has 2 different methods, here you can run it in the shell. So once you have typed it correctly, it will perform the calculation and then it will display it. But there is another way to run the program, is that you can double click on your code directly. So if you double click here, you can type in 3. Well, even if it runs correctly, it will close the program immediately. So it becomes something like this, and you cannot see the result. That's why, as an habit, I put in this line here. So this print here is to show. So this print here is to show an extra line, and when I click, so this print here is to show an extra line. This input here is to ask the user to press enter to end the program. So if I save it and then I run it outside, so it becomes something like this. When I give it the radius, it will give me an area. It will ask me to press enter to end program. When I press enter, it will disappear. So the purpose for this part is just for this cosmetic purpose. Okay, the purpose for this part is just for cosmetic purpose, and this is given in your pseudocode as well. Okay. Now, starting from this week, I have some kind of take-home assignment for you. I don't know this function. Okay, I have no idea. So maybe I will study it. Thank you very much for your suggestions. I will study it. Maybe I will use it in the next tutorial. Okay. Now, this week I would like you to do something like this. This week I will ask you to do something like this. And we have a deadline for you to submit your lab 2 assignment on 13. So 13 is this coming Sunday. Okay, remember to submit your assignment to Canvas here. Now, this is something that I want you to do. Now I have an example here. Is it this one? Okay, this one. Okay, now here I have a very simple program. Now imagine that you are living in the student hostel, and nowadays I think students, they like to order pizza. Now you have a problem is that there is a lot of restaurant around the student area that provide this type of pizza delivery service, and they charge different price for different sizes. Now you have a brain. Now you suddenly have a brainwave, and you want a program to calculate which is the most bargain pizza. What is the most bargain pizza in terms of the price per square inch? So these restaurant, they price their pizza like this. They, of course, they have a price and they will give you a size, and your program will calculate the price for square inch just like here. Let's say I have a pizza of 120 Hong Kong dollar, and it's a 12-inch pizza, and it will tell me that the price per square inch is $1.06. I'm not sure if I'm calculating it correctly, but well, this is the result. Now maybe I can do another calculation. So it is $120 for a 14-inch pizza. So the price per square inch is this one. So this is much cheaper than the 12-inch pizza charging you $140. Now this is the way you calculate, because you are running on a very tight budget to live in a student residence, so you are a very poor student. You would like to have a program to calculate the most bargain pizza, the lowest price per square inch. Okay, so this is something that I want you to do in this week, is that you complete a program like this and submit it to Canvas. Now, here it involves an extra function is like, now let me go back to this program. Now this is a tips for you. Let's say radius is 5, and then there will be a lot of different decimal places. There is a lot of different decimal places. And I will show you a function. This is called round. Let's say, for example, here, I want to round off this result into 2 decimal places. Then what to do? So you can use this round function. And round function actually takes 2 arguments. The first one is the value that you would like to round off, followed by you can use a comma, followed by the number of digits that you want. So is 2. So the whole statement is like that. You have the round function, you have the variable name, and the decimal places that you want. So as I have mentioned in tutorial 1, sometimes some methods require you to have multiple arguments, and this is obviously one of it. Okay, so if I run this one, if I type 5, it will round off to 2 decimal places. Now this is what I do here. Now this is something that I would like you to do for this week. Okay, this is something that I would like you to do for this week. Okay, now remember to submit it on Sunday, on or before Sunday. Okay, so these are the things that I need to talk about this tutorial. Now the rest of the time I would like you to do something. Now, as I have mentioned to you, this course requires you to do some kind of group project. And on Canvas, I have a document here. So I have a document under group project here. This is group registration, and there is a document here. So group register. When you open this document, is something like this. Now I would like you to use the rest of the time we have in this tutorial, that you can of course first complete your classwork so that it will not spend you extra time to do it at home. Save this one, submit it to Canvas. The next thing is you cannot open. What is the error you have? Of course, you don't double click on it, you right click and then you open it on idle. So in fact, when you have the shell, you can go to file and then you can click open and then you can find the file that you need. Okay, you can try this method first. Okay, try this method. Okay, now, so save this classwork and then submit it on Canvas. This is the first thing you need to do. The rest of the time you can complete this registration form. Now I would like you to form groups of 2 to 4 students. Okay, 2 to 4 students. And before lecture on Thursday, I would like you to submit this form so that I can check how many of you already have a group, how many of you do not have a group. In case you do not have a group, I will random you assign to a group in week 3. So here you fill in the group name, which tutorial group, and here in the members you can have 2, you can have 3, you can have 4. Okay, you put your name here, your student ID here, and I would like you to give me your programming experience as well. So some of you have programming experience and some don't. So later when I try to randomly assign those students, I also ask them about their programming experience. I will try to as there is a pool in the lecture, in the previous lecture, we have around 1/3 of students have a programming experience, around 2/3 who don't have programming experience, and I would like you to have a good mix of these. So in case you are a group with absolutely no programming experience at all, then I will try to see what kind of things I can do. Maybe I can randomly assign somebody who has programming experience into your group, so we can have a better balance, okay, of this programming course. So for the rest of the time, save this one, submit to Canvas, and you can use your chat function. You can switch on your cam, you can do whatever you like to look for a group mate, okay, and complete this form. Remember to submit it before the lecture, and after that I will check. In case you don't have a group, I will randomly assign in the coming week. Okay, so these are all the things that I would like to say in this particular tutorial. So I hope you like it. So look for your group mate. Okay, look for your group mate. This is the time for you to look for your group mate. So I think I will end recording here. So I will wave my hand, pretend to be the end of this tutorial, and I will see you on Thursday.